Boxes, boxes, and boxes. From road salt to sugar, medicine to mountain bikes. For much of Ontario and Quebec and other parts of Canada. If it's in a shipping container, it comes through the Port of Montreal. This, believe it or not, is a small terminal. So this is just one part of the massive port complex, which handles about 1.5 million containers a year.
Hello.
In September, Ottawa announced plans to fast-track an expansion to the port as part of the major projects of national interest.
The Government of Canada stands ready to ensure that the remaining approvals are expedited as quickly as possible.
But the Port of Montreal say that they're reaching capacity in just a few years. So, the province of Quebec and the Major Projects Office, the federal government, have a plan to expand another port, Contrecoeur, just down the St. Lawrence River. But is that the best port to pick? 50 kilometers down the river is the project meant to keep Montreal's port thriving, the Contrecoeur terminal expansion. The glossy promotional video touts Contrecoeur's advantages, access to the same rail lines and highways that feed Montreal. Although the land was purchased nearly 40 years ago, the cost for the long-planned expansion has already ballooned to $2.3 billion. With the announcement came protests and two separate lawsuits, one arguing the Major Projects Office is overruling environmental concerns, the other a class action lawsuit from communities along the river worried about erosion from increased shipping traffic. As winter makes an early appearance, work on Contrecoeur has already begun.
Sometimes you can see ships in between those trees.
So the ships go up and down. That's the
Yeah.
St. Lawrence River.
Exactly.
Ellen Reeves grew up here. She lives on the river and is now a spokesperson for the citizens group fighting the expansion. So all of this forest is going to be
Destroyed.
gone.
It's 13,000 trees. It's a lot.
With an impact assessment report predicting an increase in truck traffic to as much as 1,200 per day, she has serious concerns about our community's future.
It's going to become a huge industrial zone, and it's not going to be the beautiful little town on the St. Lawrence River.
Meanwhile, she says the surrounding area, home to a bird sanctuary and the endangered copper red horsefish, is at risk.
It should be considered like a treasure. It's an exceptional site, and they're going to destroy it for what exactly? The Port of Montreal is not full. We don't know in 5 years where we're going to be. If Trump is gone, all the manufacturers might just go back exporting and importing from the States.
So if you go here is our
Julie Gascon is the CEO for the Montreal Port Authority, responsible for the original port and the Contrecoeur expansion. She's been in the industry for over 3 decades.
I wish all my crane had like Christmas lights on them because for me they're so beautiful. They're part of the fabric of Montreal.
But she says the port will reach capacity by 2030, if not sooner.
You've heard Prime Minister Carney.
Our goal for Canada is to double our non-US exports over the course of the next decade.
If you increase by 6% the cargo that used to go to US that now goes to another destination, this port's full. It's full.
Capacity means congestion. In the shipping business, they talk about the deadly D word, dwell, as in how long that container of mountain bikes or mangoes sits on the dock. And so, the expansion down the river.
You've got Highway 30. You've got the railway that's already there. You've got the power with, of course, Hydro. We secured all the power for the terminal. And you have access to a huge amount of markets.
So how do you determine if this $2.3 billion bet will pay off? If you want to talk shipping, Jean-Paul Rodrigue is the guy who wrote the book. Well, books, actually. Talk to me about what you think of this plan to create a new port.
So that project should have taken place 20, 30 years ago. Meanwhile, the position of Montreal became increasingly, you could say, marginalized in terms of the big trade because the ships were getting bigger.
All right, a quick explainer about cargo ships. TEU or TUs is the standard unit of measurement, which represents about an average 20-foot shipping container. According to the Baltic and International Maritime Council, since 2006, ships with a capacity of 12,000 TEUs account for 51% of the industry, with orders increasingly going to so-called megaships. What are the sizes of megaships these days?
On the US East Coast, pretty easily 14,000 TEU. And Montreal, you talk about 4, 5, 6.
So we're talking about ships that are in common use now, that are double the size of what that Montreal, Quebec seaway can handle. What are the options? We need to physically change the river?
You cannot do that, of course. You cannot dredge the St. Lawrence. There was not an easy, but there was a solution to that, or an alternative, which was the construction of a container terminal facility in the Port of Quebec.
What he's referring to was another port at one time planned for Quebec City called the Laurentia Project, which he says would have made a better major projects candidate.
There was investment committed by one of the largest terminal operators in the world, which was HPH, and the largest Canadian rail line, CN.
In 2021, the federal government vetoed plans for the Quebec City port, mainly due to adverse environmental effects.
When this happened, I see the fate of the container shipping on the Canadian East Coast is now partially jeopardized.
But now an expansion for the Quebec City port, taking advantage of those deep water capabilities, is once again being explored. We asked the Port of Montreal CEO about the Quebec City alternative.
So you say 6,500 is about the top of what you can take
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
But the trend in container shipping is much bigger.
The trend is bigger.
14,000,
Absolutely.
12,000,
Yeah.
which can't reach this port.
But the ship that comes to a port will be the right size ship for the port and for the business. The 6,500 to 8,500 TEUs are the workhorse, right?
She says Montreal and Contrecoeur offer services Quebec City can't compete with.
So then what do you do with your container, Eli? Where do you put them? How do you destuff them? The Port of Contrecouer was selected because of that ability. You need a logistic hub.
But Rodrigue worries that hub won't be able to serve the megaships, a growing part of the industry.
However, there's always an opportunity and a niche for Montreal for these type of services. It's going to have some limitations, and that's why, depending upon where the trend goes, it's going to be increasingly difficult to bring traffic to Montreal.
For Ottawa and the Port of Montreal, the expansion is about strengthening Canada's independence.
Next best option, unfortunately for the Port of Montreal, is the Port of New York. So then if you do that, you lose economic sovereignty.
But as Canada increasingly looks to India and China for trade, the size of their cargo ships could make Montreal and Contrecoeur out of reach.